Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's 9/11. This will be our chart lesson for today, and really kind of a quiet day. Not a lot of trades today. Um, won't take long to do this. What looked like was going to be another range day, we ended up with a nice trend here today. I wouldn't say a nice trend, but we ended up with a trend here. We went sideways for really from about 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock for an hour, and then we had a little slight uptrend, corrected into 2 o'clock, and then most of the movement came after 2 o'clock today. So this is one of those days where, we get a couple of those days occasionally where you get a lot of good movement after 2 o'clock. Um, I still don't recommend trading after 2 o'clock because it's just generally you get in more trouble than you do good after that time. So I don't mark anything after 2 o'clock. But anyway, there's only a handful of trades here. Still plenty to make money, but you got to be really patient. You got to be able to sit here. I got at least two different people today that asked me, how do you handle how do you handle it when it's a real slow day? What do you do? It's so hard to sit on your hands. Well, you've heard me say it before. If you're new, maybe you haven't, but um, sometimes no trade is the best trade. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way the markets are. If you're not 100% sure about a trade, don't if you're guessing, you're gambling. And gamblers don't last in this business. So you only want to be taking trades that you feel like are sure things. And if you try to keep that in mind, that will help some. But the biggest key to trading and sitting on your hands is just having a strong mind. It's just like I tell people, it's similar to losing weight, stop smoking, kicking drug habits, things like that. Those things are hard for some people. And some people can lose weight easily, stop eating. It's not a big problem for them. Some people can throw their cigarettes away and never pick up another one. But other people struggle for a lifetime with it. And if you're, this is very similar. You just have to say, your mind just has to be strong enough to say, hey, I'm done with it. And I'm not going to let my mind overpower my actions. And that's what happens when you start trading. Your mind will talk you into horrible trades and talk you out of perfectly good trades. And most of you probably have experienced that, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your mind will do that to you, and that's just that's human nature. That's the way we're designed, and it happens to all of us. And and it's just like trying to lose weight or trying to kick a habit or whatever. At some point you just have to say, hey, I'm going to do it, and you do it. And if you struggle with those other things, you probably will be the type that may struggle with trading too. So it's not to say that you can't do it, but you probably it's going to be harder for those people that struggle with those other areas. So, but it's very similar. That's the way at least that's the way I liking it when I describe it. Is that it's I'm kind of a health junkie, and so I've gained weight and lose weight a lot over the years, and put on muscle and lose muscle and so forth. And so I know what it takes to lose weight, and I know how hard that is. And dieting and so forth. But you just have to have a mind that says, hey, I'd rather lose 10 pounds and look good than enjoy that piece of pie sitting in front of me, or that piece of cake, or that piece of whatever your favorite food is. You just have to be able to back away and say no. If somebody puts it in front of you, people with a weak willpower, they just can't say no. They'll eat it. They'll say, well, I'll eat it this time and I'll start back tomorrow, and they never really get anywhere. Where the really strong-minded person will say, no, I don't care what you put in front of me. I can sit here and look at it, and I'm not going to eat it. And trading's just like that. Excuse me, having a little throat problem there. But anyway, trading's just like that. Um, you just have to be able to say, hey, I'm not letting the slow market or my mind talk me into a bad trade, or I'm not going to let it talk me out of this great trade here either. This is the right setup. It's at the right place. Yeah, I'm scared to take it, but I know I'm supposed to. I got to take it. And it works both ways. So, keep that in mind. But anyway, I'm going to get through the trades here. I want to leave here a little early today. My nephew has a football game, and I haven't seen him play this year. And he's been wanting me to come see him play, so I'm going to go see my nephew play football tonight. But anyway, when we started higher here, if we broke higher, I'm going to look for a minimum of a measured move like that right there. And that's where we started up from. So, and you can see that's pretty close to where we got when we corrected, and we went a little bit higher, and then we sold off only to start another trend up, but it was at the 2 o'clock hour, and so there's not really anything over there. So this won't take long today. There's not many trades. 7 o'clock came right in this little move up here, and notice there's been resistance there. I didn't move the line down, but you would have had that line down here by that point. And you can see that resistance. So we topped out. You made a first entry, you pushed through the EMA, you pulled back a little bit, and you made a second entry. You had this big bearish bar. If we break lower there, it's going to be a failed second entry long, and we're probably going to trade down, hopefully to the lows. Turns out the lows were just right here at that point. Your overnight lows were really down here. So that would be your target. And notice we went a little bit lower, and then we tested it once. We tested it twice. And you had a failed second entry short. You're still a little ways away from the EMA too, so that's a fairly decent place to enter. This one, the only problem, problem I do see here is there's a little bit of congestion. But notice you're making higher lows each time, and you had this channel here, and there's a big overshoot. Maybe it's a two-tiered channel. Doesn't matter. You're right here at the midline, so you got plenty of room back to the EMA, and it's going to be a failed second entry short. It's a multiple test of that low. It could be that little break lower may be that important low of the day. This is where you would like to catch a good trade with a runner, and you would have had a runner here easily, and you'd been in at the low of the day, and this thing takes off. This is basically a double bottom here. So when you move up and you try to go short once, then twice, plus there's a second entry long right there. Even if you don't see the failed second entry short, there's a second entry long, and we're not back to the highs. It is right off that key entry point, pretty much right off the EMA too. Nice bullish bar. That's a good place to go long. Just trying to ride it back to the top. And we do actually overshoot it. There's a lower high here, but right into that EMA and right into that other low, I'd be a little leery. It worked. That's one you probably could argue to be green. But you got to be careful with those. You either want a lot of space so you know you got room to get back to the EMA, or you like for it to close below and you're entering below the EMA, but you don't really get either one of those there. So I'll make it green, but it's a little aggressive. It would have worked, but see how quick it does bounce, and you actually get a failed second entry short here, and I would have moved this up by this point. I would at least have it, I would have it about right there at this point. I ended up moving it up because we ended up getting more resistance up here, but at that point it's right there. And you can see that there's a second entry long here. You pull back first entry, you try to go lower again. It's a failed second entry short. It's a second entry long. Technically, this is really not a second entry long because we don't make a new swing high. We do make a double top there. That's close enough. You know, I'd look at that as a second entry. It's two legs back. You couldn't get below the EMA. The big thing is you tried to go lower twice. You got a nice solid bullish bar there. I like going long just to try to ride it back up to test the top. You did have this trend line working up, and that's the first break. So that's a good move up. And then we just went sideways here. I don't see anything I like here really, except this little break lower. And by this time I had this move this all the way up to here. That's where all your resistance is now. And you might even had it just a little lower right there. You get more touches there, and you could look at that as a failed breakout. This one is really tricky because this is a nice lower high that closes below the EMA, but look at all that support where it closed. I'd probably want to see a reversal pattern here, a failed second entry long, and then get short. I'm not going to go short right into that because you see what happens. It bounces right there. I'm a little leery. This is a second entry long. It's that little failed break lower. If it could push on through here, it could trap some people and push on through. I guarantee you're going to trap some people here where you could at least get a scalp back up on this. You you notice we couldn't get through there. It still had to push a few more times. So I'm not crazy about that trade. However, the fact that it's the lowest point here on after that big bearish bar off a double top and a lower high, if this thing does fail and turn back up, it's going to probably trap some shorts. And it didn't take off like a real good trap, but notice it moved right back up to the highs, and it's testing those highs, and it finally pushes through and pulls back. And it does give a third touch. We actually get more than 3 touches, but that's really a third separate touch. You know, these are not really separated, so we actually got another movement and came back, and this confirms that trend line, and you got a nice bullish bar, and we're starting to make lower highs and lower lows. You do have to go long here at the high of the day, so I don't like that one. But when it pushes up, pulls back, and gives you a first entry and then a second entry long, I like going long, especially when it right off that key entry point again. And that's a small bar. It didn't close on its very high. It's like 1 tick off. But that's a very low risk entry right off the EMA, right off a trend line. We don't quite have the measured move there yet. We're clearly above the previous resistance. I think you're going to at least get a scalp out of that to run back up. And of course it runs up right about to where the measured move is, and it looks like it's going to correct. And it gives you another second entry long here, and a lot of support across there. I'm not crazy about this trade. It's one of those that if you catch it, you may catch another good trade. I'd like to see it back over at the trend line, and I'd like to see a clear second leg down. But there are clearly multiple tests of that line, and it's not giving a bit. And we're really back to the EMA, and you got a second entry long. And again, it's relatively low risk. There's like 3 ticks in that bar. So if you're wrong, maybe you lose 4 ticks. Pretty low risk. And off it goes. And of course we get a little more than the measured move, and then we start correcting. But notice what happens here. You make that high, you make a second entry long, you come back to the trend line, or actually you make a first entry long, you come back to the trend line, you make a second entry right there. But notice that's a perfect doji. That's not a good signal bar to be going long there. And notice what happens. It breaks higher, it fails, and you get that big bearish bar. That's a trap. That's going to trap some people. It actually is a little bit lower than this bar right here. It was actually a failure when it went right below that bar. So that's where you want to go short. Not really down here at the very bottom. Your entry is 1 tick below the signal bar here. So let me make sure that red arrow is in the right place. You could have waited and let it break below this bar just to get a little more confirmation that it's going lower, and then drop your limit order back 1 tick below this one, but you wouldn't have got filled. You'd have missed that one, and then it drops on down. It doesn't drop quickly, but it moves on down, and that takes you in the 2 o'clock hour, and you don't really get a chance to go short or long after that point. There is another turn down right here, but look at all that congestion. We're not back to the EMA. It is a key entry point right there, but I just don't think you want to risk that. It would have worked. I think there's enough in there to get your scalp out of that, but it's not worth taking at 2 o'clock, right into the 2 o'clock hour. And then we didn't really get another setup here at all. I mean, there is a failed second entry short here, but you don't want to be going a long way up there, and you see it failed. And then it comes back. This is a little bit of a repeat pattern. Where was that pattern? It's similar to this right in here. It's not exactly. It feels like a kind of a repeat pattern, but it's after 2 o'clock, so it doesn't matter anyway. This is way into, I mean, 240 or so. That's too late in the day to take a trade. Even though this takes off and would have been a great trade, it's just too late in the day to be taking a trade like that. Because 9 times out of 10 you'll get burned. And if you get the real one, there's a couple reasons I don't like trading after 2, since we're a little quick this afternoon. I'll throw this in real quick. The other thing you wanted to do, I forgot to show you this too, is most of your range was right across here and here. I would have measured that range and look for that as a measured move 2. And you can see that took you right to about that first correction. So it's really about the same place that you get with the other one. So when you get multiple ones like that, that's something to look at and think about. So I mean, that's basically the same place. If you measured this leg, it takes you almost to that exact spot, and that's usually a good sign if you can get it from different measured moves. But this range didn't last very long. For the most part, since 8:30, we trended up. So I wouldn't, like yesterday, you had a trend channel, but you really needed to be doing everything by the range because that was your dominant pattern, so to speak. And today, your dominant pattern is really this uptrend. It's like a spiking channel, really, is what it is. So, but there's just different ways to get to the same, different end to a different means, or different means to a different end. However you want to look at that. Anyway, that's what I saw today. Not much else we can say about this today. There's a handful of trades here, still enough to make. And I always tell people that's the reason you can't be too picky and too choosy. If you get a good trade, you need to take it, because if you start being too picky and trying to pick and choose, you'll pick the bad ones and skip the good ones and so forth. But you can't overtrade either. But I guess where I'm going is you only need 2 or 3 good trades a day on just a scalp to make pretty good money. And if you can catch a runner, you can really multiply and improve your math if you can catch a runner. And even on a day like today, there were runners in here you could catch. But you don't need 2 or 3 trades a day to make a good living. And if you want to make more money, you don't take more trades. You just slowly start building your leverage. You add more contracts. That's the key. The key is not to sit here and trade more, because every time you enter a trade, there's always a risk of a loss. So you want to reduce any opportunity for loss. So the fewer trades you have to take to be a winner, the better. And the idea is there's always 2 or 3 really simple, easy to see, perfect trades almost. And if you just wait on those 2 or 3 every day and don't take anything else, you might have to sit here longer, and you might have to, be a lot more patient. But you could make a living just doing that. And people, that's what people seem to struggle with. The people will email me. This is what I really love. People will email me out of the blue. They've heard something about, they're either looking for something on price action, or they've heard something about, check out, this Mac guy, go check out what he's doing. I heard something about him. And so they won't really know anything about what we're doing. And their first email will be to me, how many trades do you get a day, and what's your winning percentage? And of course, the winning percentage is probably important, but how many trades do you get a day? That I know right then that they're thinking, hey, I gotta find me a system where I can make me 4 or 5 trades a day. You don't need that, and honestly, that's gonna hurt you. So what you want is as few trades as you can take every day. But of course, you need enough trades. But there's very rarely that we have less than 4 or 5 trades a day. Most of, when you get some of this high volatility, you might have 25 or 30 easy trades a day. But on an average day, you might only have 7 or I would say 7 or 8 trades a day. Nice, good trades. Maybe a few more green ones thrown in there is the average. Today, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still had 6 trades today. And then we still had a couple of green ones in there on top of that. So there's 9 trades right there to pick from. And so, of course, 6 of them are pretty good trades, and 3 of them are a little aggressive. But that's still more trades than you'll ever need in one day. So yes, don't worry about the number of trades. Just worry about taking quality trades and not over trading. And the key is just to be able to be patient and sit on your hands and wait for that good setup. And again, I talked about it, I think it was yesterday, is that people will be looking for an entry on every single bar. And you'd be surprised how many people will write me an email. I got 2 or 3 of them today, and says, yeah, that's me. I'm constantly looking for an entry and I overtrade. And how do you sit there and be patient? And it's not easy. Your mind has to be stronger than your desires, and you can't let your that little voice in the back of your head that says, "Oh, don't take that trade. It looks really good, but don't take that trade." You can't let that little voice talk you out of the good trades, and you can't be sitting here and saying, "Well, this trade, I've been sitting here an hour, and this is the closest thing I've seen. This is probably going to work." And then your brain talks you into that little voice in the back of your brain, rather talks you into taking the worst trade of the day. It never fails. That's what happens. And if you're not disciplined, that's what'll get you is just and then over trading and just taking crazy trades. And like I said, skipping the best trades. People will watch this thing move all the way up and they say, if it comes back to that trend line one more time, I'm getting long, and it'll be that one right there. And that's where they'll get long and get burned. And they'll say, dang it, every time it went up. But they talked themselves out of all these other trades, and they talked themselves into that one. And it's like clockwork. Don't ask me why it happens, and because most people want to see confirmation that the market is trading works against common sense, because common sense says wait till you see it going up consistently and then try to get in. And so you watch it and watch it, and you decide, right, okay, it keeps going up. Now's my time to get in, and you get in, and it turns down on you instantly, and you're trapped on the wrong side of the trade, and you get stopped out instantly. And you're like, dang it, what happened? But that's common sense tells you to wait. But what you have to do is wait to hear. You have to let that correction play out, and that's what's hard to do. Most people want to get long up in these. It starts moving here, and they say I got to get in. They jump in way up here, and it backs up. Even if they're following the rules, they wait till here, and then they get trapped. And so there's just so many undisciplined things that we do as traders. And so discipline is the key. You have to be able to say, hey, I got to, like right here, that looks like a short for sure. We tried to go higher a dozen times, and suddenly you get this big bearish ball, and it's a lower high, and they don't see any of this support across here. And they say, I'm going short right here. And they go short, and next thing you know, the prices are up here, and they're still holding on, saying, well, it's going to come back. And next thing you know, they're stopped out because they lost half their trading account on that one trade because they didn't want to accept that they were wrong and exit where they were supposed to exit. So that's what happens in trading, and it's easier to sit here and talk about it than it is to do it. But I hope you get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you. So discipline, being able to sit for long periods of time, not letting that little voice talk you into bad trades and not a good trades, and because that's what happens. I've been there, I've done it, and if I'm not disciplined to this very day, I will back up and do the same thing. It's easy to fall back. It's easy to fall back in those habits, and every once in a blue moon, I do it myself. I think I get smarter than the market, and I think, well, I've been right so much, I can't be wrong this time, and then suddenly you make a stupid move and you get brought back to reality, and you realize that, hey, I'm not smarter than the markets. I just have to remember to follow the rules and be disciplined, and then I'm going to have all the success I need. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.